Ever scroll through social media and get that like pang of everyone else is killing it but me? Yeah,
Hmm.
like we're hardwired for connection,
Right.
right? But it feels kind of increasingly elusive these
Yeah.
days. And it's almost like the tools that are supposed to bring us closer, they
Yes.
kind of amplify those feelings of loneliness sometimes.
Totally.
But you know what? You're not alone in feeling this way.
Hmm.
We've got your deep dive on loneliness and connection, and we've got some fascinating insights from Mosaic Minds Counseling.
Okay.
They're down in Jacksonville, Florida,
Oh.
and they seem to have a real handle on this stuff.
Yeah. What's really fascinating about loneliness is that it's like a universal human experience.
Okay.
Um, and it's not really about being alone. It's a feeling of disconnect.
Okay.
So you can be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone.
Yeah.
And that feeling can have a really, really big impact on our well-being.
Yeah, their article mentions that chronic loneliness can actually be as bad for you as smoking.
It's true.
That stopped me in my tracks.
Wow.
Because it's not just in our heads, right?
Oh,
It's like a physical threat.
absolutely.
What's the deal with that?
Well, think about it this way. Your body's stress response is kind of stuck on high alert.
Right.
That's chronic loneliness.
Okay.
And that's linked to like increased risk of heart disease,
Hmm.
weakened immune system.
Wow.
And it even affects how we age.
Really?
Isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
Yeah, your body's constantly in overdrive trying to cope with this like perceived social threat,
Right.
which takes a toll over time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's some serious stuff.
Yeah.
But the good news is this Mosaic Minds article,
Mhm.
it's not all doom and gloom.
Wow.
It's actually packed with actionable tips to feel more connected.
Okay.
One that jumped out at me was surprisingly simple.
With that?
Just being more approachable.
Okay.
I mean, I like to think I'm a friendly person,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also a champion of the resting frown face.
Sure.
So, like, what are some concrete things that we can do to seem more open to connection?
Well, it's amazing how much our nonverbal cues communicate to people.
Right.
So something as simple as a smile
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
can trigger this release of endorphins
Mm.
in you and the person that you're smiling at.
Oh, wow.
So it's like an instant mood booster,
Yeah.
but it's also a signal that you're open to interaction.
See, now that's interesting. It's like this involuntary social cue
Totally.
that we're wired to respond to.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely guilty of underestimating the power of a good smile,
Yeah.
but it goes beyond just smiling, right?
It does.
What else did Mosaic Minds highlight?
Well, they talk a lot about active listening,
Okay.
which is something we often think we're doing,
Yeah.
but we're really not.
Yeah.
A lot of times we're just waiting for our turn to speak.
Ouch. That hits close to home. I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah.
So, how do we go from passively hearing
Right.
to actively listening
Okay.
and making someone feel truly heard?
It's like everyone wants to feel seen
Right.
and understood.
Yeah.
And active listening is
Yeah.
how we show that.
Okay.
It's about being present,
Yeah.
like not just physically, but mentally too.
Okay.
So you're putting away your phone,
Yeah.
you're silencing that inner monologue,
Right.
and you're really focusing on what the other person is saying.
So much easier said than done,
Totally.
especially in our world of constant distractions.
Right.
But I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just like nod along and say, uh-huh.
Right.
Like, what are some practical ways
Yeah.
that we can show someone that we're truly engaged?
Asking clarifying questions, I think, is a big one.
Okay.
And not just to keep the conversation going,
Right.
but to show that you're really trying to understand their perspective.
Okay.
And don't underestimate the power of reflecting back what you've heard.
What do you mean by that?
So like saying something like, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated because that validates their feelings
Okay.
and shows that you're really listening.
Gotcha. So active listening, check.
Check.
What else did Mosaic Minds recommend for like boosting those connection points?
One that really resonated with me was reaching out to old friends.
Yes.
Like, what about those people?
Like dusting off that address book
Totally.
and just taking a chance.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's amazing how.
Because we've all got them.
Yeah.
We've all got those friends that we've kind of lost touch with.
Right.
But it's amazing how quickly you can reconnect
Yes.
when you have those shared memories and experiences.
It's so true. And it's like tapping into this reservoir
Yeah.
of shared history.
Right.
It reminds us that we're part of something bigger than ourselves,
Yes.
which can be really grounding, especially if we're feeling lonely.
Right.
Like, even if years have passed,
Yeah.
those shared experiences create like this foundation of understanding
Totally.
that can make it easier to reconnect.
It's like no time has passed at all.
Right.
But let's be real.
I
It's
know.
not always easy to just like flip a switch
Right.
and become a connection superstar.
Sure.
The article touches on some barriers,
Okay.
like social anxiety,
Yeah.
those pesky negative self-perceptions,
Yes.
even cultural differences.
Yeah, it's true.
That can make it harder to connect.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on like
Uh,
navigating those kinds of obstacles?
yeah. Those barriers are so real,
Yeah.
and they can be really paralyzing for some people.
Yeah.
I think with social anxiety, it's often about starting small. Right. So instead of like diving headfirst into a crowded party,
Right.
maybe start by practicing conversations
Yeah.
with people you feel comfortable with,
Right.
like a trusted friend or a family member.
Baby steps.
Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah. Build that confidence slowly.
Build that confidence.
Yes.
What about the negative self-talk? Because we all have that inner critic
Yes, we do.
telling us we're not good enough,
Right.
smart enough, funny enough.
It's like this negative highlight reel
Yes.
playing on a loop in your head.
It's brutal.
It's so bad.
So how do we quiet that voice?
I think the key is to challenge those thoughts.
Okay.
So ask yourself, is this thought even true?
Right.
What evidence do I have to support this?
Okay.
Often you'll find that those negative thoughts are really rooted in insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not reality.
It's so easy to get caught in that spiral
Oh, totally.
of self-doubt,
Yes.
especially when we're comparing ourselves to others.
Right.
Thanks, social media.
Exactly.
But you're right, challenging those thoughts is so crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about navigating connections across cultures?
Yeah.
Because that can feel like a minefield sometimes.
For sure.
Like, where do you even begin?
I think the key here is approaching those interactions with curiosity
Okay.
and an open mind.
Okay.
And remember what we said about active listening.
Yeah.
It's even more important in these situations.
Right.
Ask questions, be genuinely interested in learning about their experiences
Okay.
and their perspectives.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
Like it's all part of the learning process. It's about embracing those differences as opportunities
Yes.
for growth,
I love that.
not obstacles to overcome.
Totally.
We've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
What do we do? Where do we go from here?
Right.
What if someone's really struggling to make those connections
That's-
despite their best efforts?
You're right. Sometimes those barriers feel really insurmountable on our own.
Yeah.
And that's where professional help can be so invaluable.
Okay.
Mosaic Minds, for example.
Right.
They offer therapy and counseling services.
Mm-hmm.
And there are resources like them everywhere.
It's a powerful reminder that asking for help is not a weakness.
Absolutely.
It's a sign of strength.
Totally.
It takes courage to acknowledge when you need support
For sure.
and to reach out.
Yes. Okay, so we've talked about loneliness and the importance of connection.
Yes.
But what about the role of technology in all of this?
Ooh, good question.
Because it seems like it's both friend and foe
Yeah.
when it comes to feeling connected. It's true, we've got these amazing tools to stay connected,
Right.
but it also feels like we're more glued to our screens than ever,
Yeah.
which can be incredibly isolating.
Yeah, you're by yourself with your phone.
Right. It's like we're together but alone.
Exactly.
So how do we reconcile those two realities?
Yeah, it's really about being mindful of how we're using the technology. Like, are we using it to foster genuine connections, or
Yeah.
are we just trying to rack up likes and followers?
Mhm.
And Mosaic Minds really emphasizes using those platforms intentionally for outreach.
So like instead of passively scrolling,
Yeah.
why not send a message to a friend you haven't talked to in a while?
Okay.
Or use it to join a community of people
Yeah.
who share your interests.
Right. There's a whole world out there beyond the perfectly curated feeds.
Totally. And that's where you find it, I
Yeah.
think.
For sure. And what about things like video calls?
Yeah.
I've been relying on those so much to stay close with friends and family that are far away.
Yeah.
Do those count?
Yeah, there's something so powerful about that face-to-face interaction, even if it's through a screen.
Right.
It's how we're wired to connect.
Right.
It lets us pick up on those nonverbal cues,
Yeah.
share those little moments of laughter or understanding,
Totally.
and just feel that sense of shared presence
Right.
that you don't get through text or social media.
Yeah, it's a conscious choice to kind of bridge that distance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the big takeaway here is that building connections, whether it's online or offline,
Right.
it takes effort.
Yes,
And it takes intentionality.
it does.
It's about quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about having thousands of Facebook friends.
Right.
It's about nurturing those relationships that really matter.
Yes.
The ones that make you feel seen, heard, and understood.
100%. And it's never too late to start.
Yeah,
Maybe it's reaching out to that old friend or making an effort to really listen
right.
or putting yourself out there in a new community.
Totally.
Like those small steps can make a really big difference.
It's those little shifts
Yeah,
that can lead to big changes.
for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap on this deep dive into feeling connected.
That was great.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to put some of these strategies into action.
Me too.
So for our listeners, as you're going about your day,
Yes.
here's something to consider.
Okay.
If you had to pick just one takeaway from this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be?
Yeah.
One tiny shift that could make a real difference in your life.
Right.
What would it be?
Love it.
And what's one small step
Okay.
you can take today
Yeah.
to move in that direction?
Yeah. Just one tiny step. Remember, connection's a journey, not a destination.
So good.
We're all figuring it out as we go.
And you know what? You don't have to go it alone.
You got this.
Until next time.